Hello and welcome to Our Magickal Witchy World Television. I am Starr RavenHawk.
And I am Rhonda, Alin. Welcome back for our next week of shows. We have something special going on tonight, right, Starr?
Yes, we do. Tonight we would like to introduce the Magickal Witchy World Panel, which we're going to kind of, that will appear throughout the year every now and then to tackle an array of topics, some that's very prevalent in the world right now and some that's basically within our pagan communities. For our first panel tonight, we are going to delve into racism within the pagan communities, kind of bringing light to the situation and possibly finding some constructive ways to address it.
So now we're going to start bringing in all of our panel members, and I'm bringing everybody in one by one. We have a great group with us tonight, and we're going to ask everyone, as we acknowledge this very broad topic, this group of people that we've brought in hopefully will give us a great variety and an opportunity to discuss things on many different levels. So I'm going to hand off to Starr for our introduction.
Okay. Yeah, we will begin with a brief introduction from each of our panelists, beginning with Laura. If you can quickly, just give a brief description of yourself or bio of yourself.
Which Laura are you?
Laura Tempest, sorry.
Oh, okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Laura Tempest-Zakroff. I'm a modern traditional witch based in New England. I'm an author, an artist, a community organizer, and yeah.
Thank you. Okay. The other Laura now, Laura Gonzalez. I'm sticking with a theme here.
Thank you. My name is Laura Gonzalez. I am a priestess of the goddess. I'm a bruja, a witch. I'm a pagan practitioner. I'm a priestess of the goddess and a minister with Circle Sanctuary and the Fraternity of the Goddess, and an activist and a witch for hire, a published author, and mover and shaker. Every time I have the opportunity, I will stir the cauldron.
Thank you. Thank you. And Nikki Kirby.
Hi, I am Miss Nikki, and I am an executive producer and also the host of Witch Hat Chats, as well as the owner of Moonlight Potions and Charms, and I'm also the executive phoenix over Ever Moving We Rise as well, and I'm also a conjurer. As well as a witch for hire and anything else that I need to be. So here I am.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeshe, I hope I got that enunciation properly.
You did. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me, Starr and Rhonda. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm really grateful to be invited. I am the Mandala Priestess of the Mount Shasta Goddess Temple, the owner of the Sacred Well Shop, which is a store for magical crafts that's been operating now since 2006. And I am a minister and administrator of sacred rites, and end-of-life doula, and a tarot reader. Thanks for inviting me to be on your panel. This is such an important topic.
Thank you. Thank you. And Sahira Elfanice.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Starr, and thank you, Rhonda, again for this great invitation. It's one of my first appearances, so I'm really excited. I'm a student of Wiccan Family Temple, a high priestess, about to be ordained Reverend, so I'm really excited about that. I am also a Yagi and Ganga and Palo and a Bruja, so I'm really excited to, share ideas and to discuss this so very important topic with everyone here present. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Fabulous. Thanks very much. And just to circle back and taking the time and joining us in this conversation tonight, it is a huge topic. So hopefully we can get through a lot, but we do have 2 weeks for this topic. I also want to mention that we do have people in the chat. So thank you, everyone who is joining us in the chat. If you have any questions or would like to add comments that we can then bring into our discussion here tonight, please do mention them. We will be following the chat as well. So to open up the topic, to open up this conversation, I just wanted to begin with hearing some of your general thoughts on racism in the pagan community. What are some of the things, and perhaps maybe your top one or two, we'll keep it since we only have an hour and we have quite a few of us here. What are some of one or two things that right now stand out for you as far as, you know, the topic of racism in the pagan community?
And Laura Gonzalez, you could begin if you don't mind.
Oh, okay. Not to be put on the spot.
I'm sorry. She put Laura Tempest on the top. So we'll begin with Laura, and then you would. Oh, okay. We're playing musical chairs. Okay, so Laura Gonzalez. Okay.
Thank you. Sorry, Laura. Laura took the second. Sorry.
Okay.
I lost my train of thought. Okay, so I think one of the major issues that I see on our pagan community is cultural appropriation and whitewashing of you know, the culture of people of color in general. And I think that is something that a lot of people don't want to call in, call out, or point towards. And I think it happens a lot, you know, and there's a big difference between practicing ancient paganism that is dominant culture and appropriating the people of color culture that was criminalized for centuries, and now that has been decriminalized, is being recolonized. So I think that is a huge problem, especially because people don't know where some of these deities come from, or traditions, and a lot of the practices for people of color are of liberation from oppression.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a lot of people who are not oppressed, who are not understanding the culture of these deities, the culture of liberation from oppression. And they are just like, oh my God, it's so cool. So let me get into the bandwagon. So I think there's a whole lot of that happening on the pagan community. And yeah, that's a huge problem.
Okay.
I just heard today, 3 feet away from me, somebody calling the Maya gatekeepers. So there is a lot.
Calling who gatekeepers?
The Mayan people that are not allowing white people or white culture people to go down there and just take more.
Oh, okay. All right.
And yeah, so there's a lot of that.
Okay.
Thank you.
What is something for you that you as well, but that same question, Miss Nikki?
With me, I think a lot of it has to do with the African American religious magical culture, because a lot of them, basically, from what I have come back from the West Coast there, I used to live in California, and then I came back to North Carolina. And when I'm going to these festivals, I go to these festivals on the East Coast, and I don't see a lot of diversity, especially when it comes to hoodoo and conjure and all the other African religions and so forth. And a lot of people come to me and they go, "Ooh, hoodoo, isn't that a bad thing? You know, isn't that awful?" And I'm like, "No, it's not that. You know, it's a lack of education, it's a lack of knowledge that a lot of people tend to not understand. Or do you have to be, you know, this certain way, or do you have to be like this or that?" And I'm like, no, we have to have this knowledge, and we have to have this understanding of being able to learn about other cultures. it just it drives me nuts that and there's one particular pagan culture that was really pushed at one of the conventions that I went to, and it's known for its racism, and it really drove me nuts. And I'm one of those type of people that I'm not 100% witchcraft. I kind of like to do things a little bit differently because I am a blend of all kinds of different cultures. And so I like to do things a little bit differently, and I've had a significant spiritual turn. So I'm looking into a different way right now, and I'm exploring a different avenue, and I've asked, where can I go here to be able to learn more about this certain path? And every time I have a festival that says, oh, we're offering conjure classes, and I go, and you know what the conjure classes are? The ones that I teach.
Okay.
Right. So what I'm hearing is it's a lack of understanding about other cultures and their religious practices. That's one of the things that you're noticing right now.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Right, and I've left traditions because these traditions have said that, oh, you're into conjure? No. That goes against the reed, and that goes against this, and that goes against that, and that's black magic.
Mm.
Like,
That's a
So
whole
it's a lot
nother
of misconceptions. A
Yeah.
lot of misconceptions and misunderstandings.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Don't get me started.
And we're gonna quickly ask everyone a little thing, but we're gonna go more in depth with other parts of it as we go on. So just so you guys know. Okay. The other Laura. I kind of
Right.
separated you guys a bit so we can know who's who.
I mean, if it makes it easier, you can just call me Tempest, and that way we won't have.
Okay. All right. Sounds good.
I mean,
Done.
and I love the other Laura, so we're like, yeah, we'll have Laura and Tempest.
Tempest. I like that.
Yeah, Tempest. So Laura Tempest now.
So kind of the main things that I see a lot, and they're kind of hand in hand, is the need for respectful representation and events where it's not like, oh, let's just add a person of color and then we're not going to pay them equally or give them proper billing or spell their name right at the event. You know, I see that a lot, but you know, of course the cis white male gets all the headlining and that, and we're just still like, but look, we're being diverse. Like, no, you're not. And that filters all the way down to your attendees. And are your attendees feeling included? Are they feeling like the event is accessible for them? And those are just like really, you know, you can put the dressing on top, but it's still going to be iceberg lettuce underneath.
Well said. Thank you. Well said.
That's saying a lot. Yeah, that's saying a lot.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Yashay?
Well, in order to not, repeat what other people have said, with which I wholeheartedly agree, I would say additional problems that I see are, one, the automatic assumption that everybody who's white should be only pretty much practicing Celtic traditions, which not everyone resonates with. And that can also become a source of appropriation amongst white people. And then the second aspect is that there seems to be a preponderance of white men with dispensable income who are claiming the traditions that were originally created by women of color. And so those two things, just not to repeat things I've already heard, those two things are big problems that I see, because the things that were created by women of color at kitchen tables and in the midst of life happening take on a very different tone when they're mediated by and promoted by men who have no kids, lots of dispensable income and not the same level of day-to-day service level engagement. And then the second is that kind of like amongst white people, this idea that everybody has to conform to Celtic traditions, which are just not everybody's bag. And I think bleeds over into pressuring people of color to abandon their own traditions in favor of embracing Celtic-based traditions.
Thank
Okay.
you for that.
Thank you. That's a good one too. Okay, sorry. Rhonda, what about you?
Did we get everyone ready?
No,
What about me? I'm sorry, my own
Okay,
opinion. I'm gonna
Tahira?
Okay. So thank you, Starr, for sending it over my way. I'm going to flip the script a little bit. So I'm going to talk about kind of like our traditions, like our religious traditions. And I say traditions like that because the Christianity, for example, or other religions where there's that infighting, mine is better than yours. So I am a palera. And so I practice palo. I'm initiated. I'm not a santera, but I have a santero godfather. Every time I talk about my studies at Wiccan Family Temple, they tell me, Wicca's for white people. You need to drop that shit. Excuse my language. Hopefully I didn't cuss.
It's fine. Yeah, we're all of us.
Fine.
You know, you need to drop that because all they're doing is they're taking your money. And I'm like, dude, I'm an eclectic witch. Like, I can learn whatever I want and use it in whatever best way I feel necessary. I don't have to practice ATRs in order to not sell out. I think selling out means that, you know, you go against your beliefs. You go against what feels comfortable for you, what feels right for you, right? I am respectful of everything and everyone, but do not tell me what I should or should not believe in. So that is why I left traditional religion. I was born and raised a Catholic for many, many years, and I poked holes through that religion left and right. And so, and it's a misogynistic, male, patriarchal religion, as many others are. So then I come to Santeria and Palo. They told me, "Oh, you shouldn't be wasting your money on Wicca," and I'm like, You're saying all the same things that those traditional religions are saying about you. So,
yes.
you know, there's something to be said for that, that infighting within traditions, mine is better. Why don't you come here instead of going over there? Don't spend your money over there, spend it over here. It becomes like a game of, you know, where's Waldo on where you spend, you know, where you put your wallet down on, right? And so that's always been like, you know, that's always been that kind of burning seed for me. Like, I'm just like, you know, if you were really practicing in a way, if you really believed in your tradition, in your beliefs, then you would have an open forum for everyone to feel comfortable so that they can be themselves and practice in a way that they feel comfortable with, not trying to enamor them in one way or the other just so that they can get the money. I feel like it's a money game, honestly speaking. You know, it's not even about race, it's about money. Because it's all green, right? And so where do you want to spend your money? And I think that, you know, belief systems and traditions should be way more than just money. It should be about community, and it should be about, you know, kind of empowering each other to be better and to get to that next level. Not that infighting where you kind of step on each other's necks in order to be better. To me, that doesn't mean that you are better. It just means that you're competing. And I kind of sit back and laugh at folks, because when you're getting blasted and hexed, I already know what I need to do to protect myself. So I'm like, shh, and I just slide left real quickly. But that is my pet peeve with our traditions, just in general.
Okay.
That's it.
Right,
That's
thank
excellent. Call out too.
Yeah.
Excellent call out. And I'm just going to wrap up with Starr. You were asking me what some of my thoughts were right now about, in general, about racism within the community. And you know, we're just a microcosm of what, you know, what happens all around the world anyway. We're showing and reflecting the same things that we're seeing in the larger community. And I think some of the things that I notice and I see is, yes, it is difficult to have different faces come into different work, because there is the assumption that, oh, this isn't for you. I mean, I'm African American, but I have many different lineages in my background, those that are biological and those that I invite, the ones that I selected, the ones of my choice. So I think we just need to have a little bit more of we need to open ourselves. We talk a great talk, but we need to be more open to actually practicing that work. What about you, Starr? What stands out for you right now when you think about
a lot of what you guys all said are parts of the points that I wanted to kind of cover myself, but it's a funny thing. I think a lot of people of color are willing to teach people, but depending on what traditions or groups of people, they're not quite as much as willing to bring in a Black person into whatever it is, if the person that's what they're calling out for. And again, what a person feels in their heart does not have to necessarily be what people see as a skin color on the outside. It's what you're drawn to. I mean, I believe in reincarnation and being, here many times. And what your soul is calling out for is not necessarily what you look like on the outside. Saying, all of the things that you guys mentioned, or I've had Black people that came to my classes that said, oh, I can't learn anything from you. You're not white. So I have to go find a white person to learn from. I've had Blacks say that, I have Spanish say that. And I was like, okay, no worries. You can go ahead and find that white person to learn from. And because they only consider, it's another way of saying they only consider a witch to be a white person. And I think they forget the word witch or witch doctor came from many tribes around the world. It was not indigenous only to the European continent or anything like that. It was from many tribes around the world that didn't even know Europe at the time. So I'm still always puzzled by that. But, to each his own. And I wish them all the best as they went on their merry way.
Right.
But pardon my shocked face when they did that and they said that to me. I'm like, got it. Yeah. Anyways, so that was that's interesting hearing the little thoughts that everybody has to kind of offer it in general. So we're gonna cover some of those as we go through more in depth. But one of the first ones we're going to try to cover is on subtle racism. And I guess kind of in a way, say what you think subtle racism is and see if you have anything there that you can add to that part. So we'll begin with Yashe.
Okay. Well, one of the things that I've been really studying over the last decade or so has been this concept of microaggressions and what that actually ends up translating as in behavior. And I think that there are microaggressions that are deliberate. And then I also think that there are microaggressions that are just clumsy. And I think that intention does matter. If somebody is non-intentionally leveraging a microaggression because it's just what they witnessed when they were growing up, that's a person who can potentially be educated, and you can explain to them why something that they're saying or doing might be offensive, and they will, often take it to heart, listen to it, process it, and then attempt to correct the behavior. And even if their attempt at correction is clumsy, you can kind of work with them over time. And then I think there are the subtler, more offensive microaggressions, which are deliberate and which are like a pathological or sociopathic desire to create a sense of discomfort in people who are vulnerable. And so when you experience that, I actually think that's much harder to deal with, because even when you call it out, there's often a time where the person will feel defensive, or they are unwilling to look at it. And so I think, you know, in terms of subtle racism, the work that we have to do is so huge, but one piece of the work that we have to do is to be able to separate people's sociological conditioning that can be corrected from people's pathological, habitual presencing of their privilege. So
yeah,
that's what I'd have to say. Just like, I'm no expert on the subject, I'm still studying it too.
right. No, but it's I don't think we're necessarily all experts. I think we're just giving what we see in general and what we're dealing with, maybe, you know, constantly. So that's a good thing. Welcome, Kenya. Good to have you join us tonight.
Hi, Kenya.
Hello, Kenya.
Okay.
Hi, I apologize for my lateness. Mine on my laptop is now dead and I can't make it turn on. It keeps shutting off. I do apologize.
Okay, no worries. So actually, did you hear the
We're
question
happy
that
to
about
see you.
subtle racism? Huh?
I did not even hear the question.
It's okay. So I'm gonna go to the question was what kind of subtle racism do you see or have seen or noticed a lot with people? And what do we mean by subtle racism?
Let me make sure there we go. I'm focal. Okay, there we go. Okay, well, I know one of the most common forms of subtle racism that I have experienced is usually the assumption that I don't know the meaning of words. That's the biggest one. That I am not versed in either my profession or my vocation. That when they say something like widdershins, which is the low end, or if they say something like arcane, something simple, they seem to think that I don't know what that means. And they don't see that as being racist at all.
Okay, that's a good point. That's a good point with some things.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like that. They do.
Thank you.
Oh
You don't
goodness.
even know. You don't even know.
Yeah. All right, Miss Nikki. What do you say with any kind of
They're cracking up.
Subtle racism. Well, you know, I do agree with Kenya 100% about some of those things. For that, I also see in our society about certain gods that are being presented, particularly in the Norse gods, when they're talking about them, especially when it comes to the literature and so forth, especially in the modern literature now, like in American gods, when they're talking about those. I was watching that on the TV show of American Gods, and there was a lot of different things that Odin was doing, which his name was Wednesday, which was very, very racist to me. And then I started asking some of the people who follow Odin, because I don't. So I was asking about does he seem to bring that energy to you? And they said that he does. And I'm like, well, why would you follow a deity that brings that? I don't understand that. You know, and then they would tell me, they said, well, that's not all that he is. I said, well, even if that's not all that he is, then I'm trying to understand this. Okay, and I know that may be one aspect of it. And it's not my path to follow, so I'm not making any judgments or anything. But you know, I'm just kind of wondering if there's something that's not right in the spirituality, then how can we be able to move forward from that? And how can we make things right? I mean, everybody has their own personal path. Everybody's path is different. My path is different from yours, Starr, and so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
But I just didn't understand that, and they could not get me to understand that from their point of view.
Right.
So it's like they were confused themselves.
Gotcha.
So if you're confused yourself, then you need to do some shadow work to understand that yourself.
Do some
Right?
See, a part of that is
Right.
honestly speaking, I've never gotten a feeling from any of the gods and goddesses as what you will call racism, honestly. I think that part, like you mentioned, modern books are more of a construct that the modern followers are taking and adding to it.
Right.
Because I do not think I've ever seen or heard any of the particular gods or goddesses being even not even in a subtle way being racist. But then that's just me and how I see it. And bearing in mind that, again, another thing that I believe is that people have a tendency to see their gods and goddesses the way that everybody sees them, in that one way with one aspect of everything else. And they don't take into consideration when they first learned about these particular gods and goddesses, they were younger. It's like watching a 5-year-old. And when you meet them years later, you go, I remember when you were 5 years old. And that's all they remember and see them as. But they've grown up. They're grown up. They're different. They've changed and evolved. And we've not given them that evolving part at all. We've all had them as the same thing. And we're not, I don't think that people are individually journeying or really beginning to learn about these gods and goddesses individually. Otherwise, they would have different exposure and different things to relate about those particular gods and goddesses. They are not doing that, but then they say they are, or they are a follower of that particular god and goddess. And in the meantime, they've not taken the effort and the time to actually put in the work to really get to know that god and goddess. Because if you did, you will not be saying it's gearing or veering towards the racism or the different things. But again, that's just my thoughts on it, because people still want to say across the board that god and goddesses just remain the same, and that's exactly what they are. They don't get along with this other person. I'm like, and you really think that they stayed 5 years old, right? Or they stayed 16 and they did not since then? It makes no sense in my head logically.
Right. And I do agree with that, and the thing about it is, why would that person still zap, into that one aspect of that god, though? That's
again
that's
a construct that they need for
Human
themselves.
construct.
Right.
Yeah. When you I think human beings has this thing, if anything that falls into if they hear what they want to hear, because that's what their belief really is, they will create that construct for it the way they need it to be. It's the way, think about male, female, LGBT, whatever it is you want to call it. They've defined, a lot of people have defined it as only male and female, whereas that's a construct, because all of these different types of people were around since the beginning of time. So, I don't know. Maybe we've got gods and goddesses that are of different genders and all these different things. So again, it's a construct, and human beings give it all the different things with it and everything like that, and they define it and put it in that pigeonhole, and they put it there and say that's where it's going to stay. It's up to us as adults to learn, work with them, study them individually, because again, just like with human beings, we don't know them from the outside. We know what they present to us, but we really don't get to know them unless we put in that time to get to know them and really see where they're coming from. Until that happens, they're just talking to me from a book. That's the way I see them. And I kind of move on, and I go, okay, good. And I move on from what they are, because I'm not their teacher. I'm not here to teach them, and I walk away.
Right.
I can't. Okay. So I think somebody else wanted to say something to that. Rhonda?
About subtle racism.
Yes. Okay. So about
My
further
thoughts about subtle racism right now.
Yes.
Thoughts about subtle racism right now. I'm going to keep it really brief so we have a couple other people who need to chime in as well.
Yeah.
But I think we all have our own experiences of sensing, feeling. I can go back to people not recognizing, knowing, and asking me, so what are they? Are you Black? Are you mixed? Are you this? Are you that? Are you the next thing? And it was all questions that I would never think to pose to anybody else. But sometimes the comfort within which some people will ask the question is just it's an opportunity in a moment to and suggest, perhaps that's not the best way to approach me. I don't know you. Let's have a conversation. You'll get to know who, then you'll know about my lineage, my background, my heritage.
Yeah.
There's so many different things, but specifically within the pagan community, I will take it straight back to the thing that Kenya was mentioning, the idea that people assume you don't know what they're talking about. You stand out as the odd person in the group as looking like everybody else. But let me just chime in here because we have several other panelists who have not yet
Laura
spoken about this topic.
Laura
Gonzalez, your hand coming up. So let's go to you next. What are your thoughts about that?
Thank you. About the subtle racism, there are so many things like Rhonda just said, like where are you from? And one that I encounter very, very often is access. People who believe that because they know, for example, in my personal opinion and experience, because they know I am bilingual, and they will come with their 3 or 4 words in Spanish, hola chica bonita, ¿cómo está? That is extremely uncalled for and out of place and subtle racism, because speaking Spanish in this United States in 2023 is still something that people side-eye you for. And so we covet it and we take care of it. And I only speak Spanish with the people of my community who are native speakers. And it is about access, something that you, royal you, forbid from us to do, something that we are ostracized for. You still have buses on companies telling people you work in here, you have to speak Spanish.
Yeah.
But when it's a person that is outside of the community coming to us and immediately demanding access and to be entertained when they say, hola chica bonita, that is one of the biggest subtle racism.
Yeah.
And I could write a book like most of us here on this panel, but I have been asked if we have flushing toilets where I come from, and people seem to have missed the part of where I say I'm from Mexico City. So, I could stay here the whole night, but it happens a lot, and sometimes the community think it's funny, and it's not funny because there is a very hurtful historical wound for us, particularly for us Mexicans, So yeah, that's my 2 cents on that.
Well said. Thank you.
Yeah. It can be difficult. It can be difficult. Sahira?
Oh, I could go on for days on this. So I get the what are you, right? Because I understand I'm a unicorn. People can't understand what I am. And when I tell them I'm from Puerto Rico, they go, you don't look Puerto Rican. And I'm like, not everybody looks like J-Lo. Not everybody looks like Ricky Martin. There's immense diversity. Most islanders look like me. And then I'll get is that your hair? Is that your real hair? And I'm like, Black people grow hair. Like, our hair grows. Like, can you be, and can I touch it? And I become like this exotic, kind of like little doll that they put up on the platform, and they, oh, look at her. And I'm just like, I want to spit on all of y'all. Like, are you kidding me? Treat me like a person. Don't treat me like I'm this thing that is in a glass case that I'm to be showcased. And then another subtle, and I'm gonna say what it is, right? Because I'm kind of, I call myself in the veil of culture, right? So I'm a conglomerate of everything. I'm not black enough to be black, and I'm not white enough to be white. I don't look Puerto Rican. When I speak Spanish, all of a sudden everybody goes, you know, like, she's Hispanic. And I'm just like, you know, I don't know what my cover says, but I am proud of being Hispanic. I am proud of my African roots. In certain ATR houses, they kind of don't want to show me things because, you know, don't show the Hispanic anything because, you know, this is for Black people. And I'm like, I am Black. I can trace it, actually. My African lineage, the slave lineage, I know the slaver family that we are named after. I can actually trace that. So for you to come in and make assumptions about me because of the way I look, the way I sound, because I speak Spanish, and all of a sudden everyone goes, oh, English only. Do you understand? The Hispanic population in America has grown by leaps and bounds and continues to. We're actually becoming the majority. You know, people of culture are actually the majority in this country, right? But yet we're still called the minority. That is a wound that stays with us and festers because we're not given our equal share. But then internally within our culture, within our multiculturalness, we're infighting and fighting for a sliver of the pie instead of demanding the whole thing. Because I'm all about getting it all, not about getting this little sliver. This sliver is not enough. I want it all. I want an equal playing field for everyone. Not just for African Americans, not just for Latinos, not for Asian Americans, not for anything, not for white folks, for everyone, right? And that's something that, you know, I experienced at work. I was called Puerto Rican princess at a Black media company. I won't say the name, but it's a Black media company. I work in media, and I was called Puerto Rican princess. Whereas, you know, when I didn't walk around touting my Hispanicity, I'm one of a team, right? And we're all a team working towards a particular end game, which is making money for the company. I'm a salesperson. I make money for the company. And I don't use my Hispanicity to do that. I use my knowledge, my education, and my relationships to do that. And that's what platform I stand on, yet I keep getting kind of pulled out as like, oh, she's not one of us, she's Hispanic.
Right.
And I'm like, I thought we were all the same. Like, I thought we were all on the same team. Like, all of a sudden, I'm not part of the team.
Right.
And so, and it hurts. It does hurt. I've gone through a lot. Starr, you know, we've had many conversations about this. It hurts, and it makes you want to exclude yourself and not kind of give. And then when you exclude yourself, you become that person that, oh, you think you're too good for anyone. Oh, you know, she doesn't think she's Black. You know, she thinks she's better than us. And it's like, no, if I'm not accepted, why do I want to be part of a team where I'm not accepted? I'll go somewhere else. So I'll be by myself and do what I do best. And so those are, and they're subtle and sometimes not so subtle. Right. You know, but they fester and they cause wounds that will never heal, unfortunately.
Yeah. Laura Tempest?
That I appreciate.
Yeah, thank you. That was insightful.
Thank you for the platform.
The eternal question of, but where are you from? No, really, where are you from? You know, that goes into Mr. Here was just saying, it's like people wanting to demand almost like, here's my pedigree, here's my DNA test to like say that you can or can't do a thing, which really feeds more into white supremacy than it does into celebrating the cultures that we're raised in, the cultures that we are part of and that we're studying, and all of that. And I feel like that also, you know, it's the snap judgment of how someone looks or what their last name might be, rather than who are they and what do they bring to the table. And I would bet that all of you that have presented at events have dealt with the kind of both the subtle racism and the misogyny of being confused for the other similar person like you at the event, like, oh, Becky. Like, oh, did you confuse the two Black women who are at this event and calling it like, especially when, you know, the person's photo is over all the promo materials. Like, could you just pay attention? Like, I always say, like, witchcraft is like 90% observation. Like, observe, please.
Exactly.
Pay attention. Give that respect to look at the person, recognize, to ask them before you go and assume, and be like, so that class that you taught today, and like, I didn't teach a class. Like, you're in 90 minutes for a class, and who are you confusing, you know, me or this other woman with? It's, you know, and then the other side of that is when you are, you know, teaching something, and then, you know, you talk about white supremacy and why, you know, how it's affected the community, how it's really deeply entrenched in Western occultism. And, you know, the old white man comes up to you afterwards like, well, you know, you're just making more white supremacists by calling it out.
Oh, dear goddess.
Well said.
I've got that. I have my little tally sheet. I'm like,
well said.
Oh, tell me more.
Well said. Well said. We have this is a huge topic, and seriously, you all have touched on things. We only have 2 nights for this conversation. We could spend a whole lot more time on it. But thank you for all of the feedback on that. Before we take a really short break, because we are really almost we're 10 minutes to the top of the hour, just about.
Wow.
I wanted to just ask, before we dump off, really quickly, any thoughts that you might have at this point in time on any way we could be a little bit more inclusive at our events, pagan events, anything that you can think of, top tip, on how we can be inclusive.
Yeah. Hi.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is Kenya again. I want to jump in here because I am on a diversity and equity and inclusion board in Michigan. And we have wrestled with this for the last year and a half. And it is, we have a document. We have a living document if you'd like to see it. You know, I will talk to them and see if we can share it. But one of the things we had to do, we had to sit down and say, before we did anything else, who are we trying to reach? What demographic do we currently reach in these events in our area? Write that down and see who it is we are not served. You see, because you need a measurable outcome. And to do that, you need data.
Right.
So the first thing we had to do was who is coming and then who is not coming and who used to come and stopped coming and who has never come. Especially the deaf pagan community, it's almost impossible for me to do a measurement of that because we never have anything for them in most of the groups, in most of the events. You know, it took a long time for me to get people to volunteer and give ASL, which I was, you know, paid them. I did some barter and exchange and some monetary stuff going on at my last 2 events where I could get people out for ASL, but that was still like pulling teeth. So that was one way. Another thing is we don't really talk to people who do things that may be out of the way of like Bavarian magic, Bulgarian magic, Scandinavian magic. There's so many different courses. And especially with Michigan, you know, we're an international port. So there was absolutely no excuse for us not to be reaching out to these communities. So that's what we did. We had to sit down and actually write these things down. That was the first step.
Right.
Excellent. Thank you for that. Wonderful.
Anybody else that would Okay. Laura Gonzalez.
Yeah, a little bit. Oh, I'm having a big
There's
echo.
a little bit of feedback.
Yeah, I don't know what that is.
All right, can people hear
I think
me now?
if somebody could mute your phone, I think it to a speaker or somebody's picking, they have to maybe mute themselves.
Okay.
All right. So what I noticed that happens here a little bit in Chicago is the knowledge that not all witches and not all witchcraft practitioners are created equally. The pagan community, and it's not one specific person, but it happens a lot, that if you're not Wiccan or if you're not a pagan practitioner, is not witchcraft, ergo is not invited into the party. And a lot of Latino people have practices that incorporate Catholicism, Christianity, and witchcraft. And when we are not allowing space for people to just express their spirituality, whichever it might be, we are excluding them. And I have a friend who was drilled by a white man on why her altar looked a certain way. And she was a Mexican practitioner of witchcraft and had a cross, Catholic cross on her altar. And it really rubbed me the wrong way, because it's like, if you don't understand that a lot of Latino people incorporate witchcraft with Christianity and Catholicism, then you're just not paying attention. And like Laura said earlier, 90% is paying attention. So being observant. In Chicago, we have a huge Latino community of witches. And I almost never see them at pagan events. And it's because they don't feel comfortable, because they are questioned. So I don't think it's about not seeing color and singing Kumbaya. I think it's about recognizing color differences and celebrating those differences. Because the fact that other witch practice any kind of way does not affect my practice. And I can just celebrate their practice and the freedom that they have to do their practice. And then I go home and I do my thing the way that works for me.
Right.
So that's one way. That's one idea.
Okay.
Excellent.
Nikki?
Thank you.
Nikki had her hands up, and then Yeshe.
Yeah. The one thing that I believe that everybody should do is to teach their children to respect themselves and then learn how to respect each other, especially when it comes to their beliefs and their personal beliefs, their spiritual beliefs. With Ever Moving We Rise, we understand that everybody's spiritual path is extremely personal. And that path must be explored. So your path is different from mine, but that doesn't mean we can't come together and celebrate something, whatever that may be. And it may be a little bit different. One time it may be something that you, for example, Rhonda, if you were a part of us, you may be the one who's going to be, hey, let's celebrate it your way. Awesome. Let's go ahead and let's do that. We can go ahead and learn something different. And then next time it will be Kenya's way. Oh, yeah, let's do it this way. But that doesn't mean that I'm going to have to do it Kenya's way all the time, or I'm going to have to do it Rhonda's way all the time. It's just something new and different for us to be able to learn. That is what it is, to respect each other's way and respect one another and value yourself and learn how to value each other. Because once we learn how to do the value thing, then we can be able to sit down and learn what common ground is. And when you learn what common ground is, you can be able to talk things out. Like things like racism and other major topics, without taking things and start smacking each other all the time with, okay? You don't want to do that. You want to be able to sit down, and when we teach our children to start valuing each other and respecting each other, that's where we have to start, is to teach our kids to do that. Because if they see adults doing that and they can do it with each other, things will be a lot more better to be able to do it that way.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you for sharing that.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, Shay?
Just a time check. We are at 5 minutes at the top of the hour, and I just wanted to bring a
We're going
mic
to do it all.
on that. Yeah.
I know,
Want to get
right?
to everybody before the hour is up.
I'll be super quick. What I have to say is really direct. I'm all for the big tent. I'm all for finding ways to make the big tent more inclusive and more diverse. But I actually think that the way to do that is for predominantly historically white organizations to go ahead and just give money to organizers of color who are putting on their own events, because I think that supporting the leadership of people of color within their own communities should be the bigger priority for white people, rather than legitimizing themselves by bringing in Add Color and Starr. And so I think more people of color would feel more trusting of white organizers of events, or of, you know, multicultural organizers of events that have been historically white, if those organizations just went ahead and forked over some money and gave those dollars to people of color who are organizing their own grassroots events. And it would be a commitment to do so, and a true sea change to say, we're not actually trying to bring people of color here to legitimize ourselves. We're actually giving money and giving really practical on the ground support to organizations and events that are already being expertly headed by people of color who are teaching from their own traditions in their own ways. And I think that would be a good reparations effort.
Okay. That's a
you
good
for
suggestion. Thank you. Anyone else? Quickly?
Laura Tempest. Thank you.
One thing that I've discovered is really considering how we market and what words we use. Having done events in the Pacific Northwest and in New England, you know, for those of us who've been in the pagan community for a long time, right, that and then the next generation is not so keen on the word pagan. They've seen a lot of the mess that has developed over that. So it's like, is your language more inclusive, that you have witch and magical practitioner? I know witch is a loaded word, but the younger generations are like, yes. And so that is really reaching out to corners who would maybe never go to a pagan pride or some sort of anything called a pagan festival. So, you know, again, thinking about what is the root language and opening that up, and people feel, oh, this is for me too. I'm not feeling immediately excluded, because especially, you know, as Laura was saying, like those who had like the Catholic background, we're having a bit of Christianity or Jewish background. There's like, I don't know where that fits. Is this a religious thing? So if we come at it from the magical point, it really makes a difference, and you can see it in who's attending and who keeps coming back.
Right, right.
Well said.
Great suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I guess we're kind of at the top of the hour now with everything, right? We have like 1 minute left for tonight.
We have 1 minute
Well,
left.
you know, we want to thank everyone for being with us tonight. We will continue on the 17th, same time, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And again, I hope you enjoyed it so far, the Magical Witchy World panel. And again, the topic would be continuing on the racism in our communities. And we would try to provide some great resources and possibly help in any way we can with it. Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much for joining us tonight. We'll see you all next Friday.
Yes.
And for the rest of you who are hanging out, a little message from Witches Fest US 23.
Yeah.